Hey guys, Mike with the Pop Culture Playhouse, and welcome to another exciting installment of the Blu-ray DVD Weekly Wrap-Up. I got a great stack of titles to discuss this week in what is becoming the first all-horror edition. So we're going to take a peek at E1 Entertainment's exciting release for Monsters, the complete series, Scream Factory's Blu-ray release for the Slumber Party Massacre, Troma Entertainment's Return to Nuke'Em Volume 1, Odd Thomas from Image Entertainment, Tom Holland's Twisted Tales, and so much more. So sit tight and we'll be back in just a second. Alrighty guys, and welcome back to the all-horror edition of the Blu-ray DVD Weekly Wrap-Up. The first title we're going to be talking about this week is an incredibly exciting one. It's the complete series of Monsters, available right now from E1 Entertainment. Now, Monsters originally ran for 3 seasons from 1988 to 1991, and in this 9 DVD collection, you're getting all 3 seasons consisting of all 72 episodes completely remastered for the first time on DVD. Now, growing up, I remember watching this show a lot on the Sci-Fi Channel, and I always thought it was a great time. It was a really, great kind of experiment and anthology storytelling with a different monster at the core of each episode. This is actually executive produced by Richard Rubenstein, who is also behind another 80s-themed horror show, Tales from the Dark Side, that's also available out on DVD. And that's an interesting thing because, in recent years, we've been pretty lucky as horror fans to see so many of, the cheesy 80s television shows that aired in that time period making their way to DVD for the first time, like Friday the 13th, the series, Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Dark Side, like I mentioned, and Monsters, which has recently been airing on the Chiller Network in recent years, has been one of the few that just always evaded a DVD release until now. And thankfully, E1 Entertainment has done a really phenomenal job presenting all 72 episodes on the DVD format, which is really great. It was a blast revisiting this show. Like I said, I remembered watching it, back in the 90s on the Sci-Fi Channel, and I just always loved the opening of this show of, like a suburban family kind of sitting and lounging in front of the TV trying to figure out what to watch, and then they realize that their favorite show, Monsters, is coming on, and then the camera kind of slowly pans, and it's not your typical suburban family. It's a suburban family of monsters. It's a really simple and effective little opening that really sets the tone for the show that you're about to watch, which, there's some great episodes, there's some not so great episodes, but all in all, this is a really fun show that really, kind of had a great atmosphere to it at a time when, horror shows, were pretty much all the rage. I mean, there was so many of them airing during the 80s, some of which that are still not out on DVD, Freddy's Nightmares. But, that said, we're really lucky to have Monsters out, because, like I was mentioning, this has been one of the few that has been missing out on a DVD release, and I know that this has been anticipated by fans for many, many years, so it's a great time, and, it's really funny, revisiting so many of these episodes, because it's, very similar to things like Tales from the Crypt. You watch these episodes and you see so many familiar faces appearing in them that went on to such bigger fame. For instance, they have so many on the back, like Adrienne Barbeau, Linda Blair, you have Steve Buscemi, Billy Drago, Frank Gorshin from the 1960s Batman series, Pam Grier, Ashley Lawrence, Meatloaf, Lily Taylor, David Spade. You just get a slew of so many great people in front of the camera as well as behind the camera, too, like Michael Gornick, who directs the pilot episode and would go on to, be a producer of Monsters later on. He was also responsible for the underrated sequel Creepshow 2. But, all in all, this is a great, great 80s-themed horror show that I'm so happy to have out on DVD. If you remember growing up with it or have caught it in, recent years on Chiller, this is a great collection to pick up right now. I had so much fun revisiting it, and I'm going to have, that much more fun, cutting back into, some of my favorite episodes around Halloween time. But all that said, let's go ahead and check out the packaging on this. Some really simple but yet effective, design with an eyeball there. And if you can kind of make out in the white, there's different, monsters from the various episodes in there with that, really awesome, iconic Monsters logo. And then when you flip that around on the back, you get some screen grabs as well as, a handful, more than a handful of, the guest stars that, of course, would go on to much bigger fame on that one. Give you a little look at the spine there, and I'm going to take these out individually. Inside you kind of get like a paper sleeve of other E1 Entertainment releases, some Elvira DVD releases that they've put out. The first season of Monsters right here with that cool Dracula character on there, flipping that around to the back. And season 1 is actually on 3 DVDs. The first one is actually still in my DVD player, but which is actually, kind of works out, because if you can see, all the episodes are listed on the inside insert with episode descriptions, which is always really nice and helpful. I like when TV box sets do that. And then when you flip that over, you're kind of using that eye, kind of designed for the DVD art. So that's season 1, and then season 2 is in a blue case with that demon character on there. That's so cool. That's another great thing about the show, is that, for the limited budget that they probably were working on, they really achieved some really great makeup designs that, paid off pretty well for, a half-hour horror television show. Give you a little shot of the back there. Again, some cool screen grabs. I really like the color design. They really, managed to keep the, the spirit and the tone of the show present on all the packaging, which I really like. Again, similar kind of thing, with the episodes and episode descriptions listed. Another 3 discs yet again for season 2 here. And then finally, we have the final season, season 3, with another kooky demon character right there, this time in a green case. Flipping that again over, you got some cool screen grabs from the various episodes that you'll find in season 3. And then, yet again, similar to the other seasons, episodes and episodes descriptions, that eye DVD art with, a green, kind of eye color going on there. So, really good stuff, guys. It was a real blast revisiting Monsters for, the first time in many, many years. I think I haven't watched it since I, saw it in syndication on the Sci-Fi Channel. So this is a great show to kind of pick up now and revisit it, because it's a really fun time and will really send you on a great nostalgic journey. Check it out now from E1 Entertainment. And next up, guys, available right now from Scream Factory, is one of my all-time favorite slasher flicks, 1982's The Slumber Party Massacre. Now, I know this was actually previously released by Shout Factory along with its 2 other sequels as a part of their Roger Corman Cult Classics line, but that was actually before Scream Factory ceased to exist. But now, Scream Factory has gone back to the original camera negative to present a brand new HD transfer of the original classic film. This has always been a favorite of mine. This was released in 1982, really at the peak of the slasher movie boom, but there was just something about this film that I always really, really dug, and something that I always found really unique and interesting about that was, for the whole trilogy, just how integral women behind the camera were involved in the making of these films. Writing and directing the films were all women, which is, even by today's standards, it's really unique and rare, because, especially back then, there were so many women's, rights groups out and all these activists out picketing slasher films and finding them really degrading to women. So I always find that really funny and interesting that, some films, as, I guess as chauvinistic as they would call it, as something like The Slumber Party Massacre could have ever been done by women. But it's really great stuff. I mean, the whole series has a really great history to it, but I just always appreciated this film because they always knew what they wanted to be in this series, especially in the first film. They don't shy away from all the quirks that make a great slasher film a slasher film. It's got a great, breezy runtime, clocking in at about 77 minutes, which is way shorter than your typical, 80 to 90 minute slasher, fare at the time. But, the breezy runtime just really enhances it. It goes for the jugular. It sets up, a very simplistic story of a girl named Trish who is alone for the weekend, and she invites some of the other girls on her basketball team to come over for a little bit of a slumber party. But unfortunately for them, an escaped mental patient is, on the lookout with a power drill in tow, ready to, off these girls one by one. Very simplistic in its plot, really goes for the jugular, it doesn't shy away from what it is. It's putting, really beautiful women, front and center, plenty of nudity and TNA to behold, and some great kills to be found too. So, really good stuff. Always enjoy the Slumber Party Massacre, the first one being my favorite, and, for people that may be on the fence about this, already owning that great DVD set from a few years back, I highly recommend picking this one up because the new HD transfer that Scream Factory has presented for this disc looks really breathtaking. You got like a great grain structure going in throughout it. There's a lot of nighttime scenes, rightfully so, with the escaped mental patient stalking the girls at night. So black levels look really good for a film of this age, especially for a film with the budget that they had. Looks really good. Detail looks nice and close-ups, especially in the facial features, and wardrobes pop surprisingly well. With a lot of robust colors at that early '80s time period found in the wardrobe. So that all translates really well. So, color me surprised. I was really taken aback at how well this translated to the Blu-ray format. And if that were not enough, in true Scream Factory form, there's a slew of great special features on here. You get the Sleepless Nights Making of Slumber Party Massacre documentary in a slightly edited version where it really just focuses on the first film, because on the DVD release it kind of just spans the entire trilogy, but this is one of my favorite, look behind the scenes at a slasher film. Great, great documentary. You also get an audio commentary with director Amy Holden Jones, as well as actors Michael Villela and Deborah DeLisa. You also get theatrical trailers for all three of the films in this, and if that were not enough, you get a brand new interview with Rig Kennedy, who plays Trisha's next-door neighbor. It's a really great and interesting, very, very interesting little interview. Very entertaining stuff, and Rig actually performs one of his poems for the camera, which is very interesting and quite a watch. Let's just leave it at that. But great stuff. Scream Factory did a great job translating, one of my favorite slasher films from the early '80s to the Blu-ray format. But all that said, let's go ahead and take a peek at the packaging. You get that great one-sheet poster art for what my money's worth. That's one of the best slasher movie posters of all time. Great stuff. And then flipping that over, you get some cool screen grabs from the film and a list of all the special features. And then when you crack that one open, you get some great disc art utilizing that one-sheet art again, and you get some foreign poster art there. I'm actually going to take the disc out to display some again. Looks to be some, a few, various lobby cards from the original marketing campaign. So really cool to have that included on here. It just kind of, adds to the aura of the Scream Factory releases. But, all that said, one of my favorite slasher films presented by one of my favorite distributors today, Scream Factory. If you're on the fence about picking this one up, don't be. It looks phenomenal in Blu-ray and comes with some new special features, so it definitely makes the purchase well worth it. It's available right now from Scream Factory. And the next title we're going to be taking a look at is available right now from Anchor Bay Entertainment, and it's Troma Entertainment's Return to Nuke'Em High Volume 1. Now, admittedly, I've never seen the previous Nuke'Em High films, and I've never really been a huge Troma Entertainment fan. I mean, I've seen all the Toxic Avengers, and especially the first one I really, really dig, but, overall, I just kind of feel like Troma's films are, they kind of come at, a time and a place for every genre fan, whether it be, like, in middle school or high school, and you get really, really deep into their catalog, but maybe as you age, you kind of fall out of love with them. And while I can't say, I really am in the majority of people like that, I never really was, a die-hard Troma fan, but there were, a few films that I kind of liked. I mean, like I just said, specifically The Toxic Avenger was one that I always liked as far as fun, campy, low-budget filmmaking, but I've never seen the original Nuke'Em High films, and I was a little worried walking into this one thinking that it was gonna, really interfere in me seeing this new one after so many years, but quickly upon popping this one in and kind of reading around, that doesn't seem to be doesn't seem to be the case here. This really seems to be a bit of a kind of like a reboot, or at least a jump start to a bit of a an already established franchise in the Troma universe. But all that said, Return to Nuke'Em High Volume 1 takes place in Tromaville, New Jersey, where the local power plant has been bulldozed to make way for a new organic food company. But when the organic food company's food is, slowly but surely contaminated and served to the local high school, some of the biggest geeks in the glee club of the high school, eat the contaminated food and turn into these, disgusting mutants known as cretins. And before long, the whole high school is under attack from these mutants, and, the town, and just some wacky chaos ensues. There's violence, there's lesbianisms, there's lesbianism, there's shootouts, there's a duck in it that gets shoved in people's mouths, there's punks in it, running rampant. It's all over the place in true Troma form. I mean, this film is just absolutely balls to the wall insanity. But that being said, I can't say I was a huge fan of this film. You know, it definitely had its moments, but like I said, if you're a fan of Troma and you kind of love everything, you know, about their brand and everything, you know, that comes with being, you know, a Troma fan, you're gonna walk away pretty pleased with it, because I just kind of felt like it's a lot of, you know, more of the same of what they've done. But I think that they know their shtick and they stick to it, and they have a lot of dedicated fans that stick by their side through thick and thin. But while Return to Nuke'Em High did have some entertaining parts, I mean, you know, a film that's loaded with punks immediately has my attention. So that's one point that I give it. I love punks featured in films, and these are definitely genuine, real punks that they're using, which is very, very cool stuff. I really like the makeup design of the Cretans in it. It's very, you know, simple, but, you know, kind of just like face-painted punks, and, you know, leather jackets, and spikes, and horns, you know, really cool stuff going on in it. You know, there's some crude humor in it that's very over the top, that's just, you know, it's funny at just how bad it is, really, you know? Like, I think that that's one of the things that I think Troma is intentionally going for. And one of the highest compliments that I think I can really pay Return to Nuke'Em High and all Troma productions is, while this film is not trying to be, you know, it's not trying to pretend like it's taking place in a different time period. It's definitely taking place in our, you know, in the present, you know, based on some of the things that you'll see in this film, you know, making fun of bloggers and stuff like that. But there's just something about Troma productions that no matter what they do, they can just effortlessly make all their productions look like they're in the 80s, which is, you know, a lot harder said than done. I know a lot of films try and go for that 80s, oh, it's set in the 80s here, set in the 80s there, but it just looks like a bunch of people wearing wigs and they put them in a video store, and, you know, it just feels very fabricated. But in Troma productions, especially in this movie, there's just a real air of, like, genuine 80s ooze, you know, coming from it, which I really like. And like I said, it's not intended, you know, it's set in the present, but there's just something about that. It's just very charming, and it's, you know, it's a lot harder said than done, but Troma always pulls it off in flying colors, so I really dig that. But, you know, while I wasn't a huge fan of Return to Nuke'Em High Volume 1, I'll definitely look forward to checking out how it wraps up in Return to Nuke'Em High Volume 2 when it gets released later on this year. But all that said, this does come with a bunch of special features, which is really cool, including an audio commentary with a few of the actors. You also get a separate audio commentary with writer and director Lloyd Kaufman, as well as the producer and executive producer, associate producer, and writer Travis Campbell. You get a casting conundrum featurette, which is pretty funny stuff. You get a pre-production hell featurette with Mein Kampf. You get a special ed effects stuff, which is really cool to see how some of the effects were pulled off on it. Of course, in true Troma fashion, limited budget. You get a celluloid Kaufman 40 years of Troma making Traumatizing the World featurette. You get an Architects of Fear Edison device music video, and a trailer for Volume 2, which is a really cool sneak peek at the conclusion of this story. But like I said, not a huge fan of it. It had its moments. I really like the genuine 80s atmosphere that comes from this film, although it's taking place in our time period. But if you're a diehard fan of Troma entertainment, then I think Return to Nuke'Em High Volume 1 is definitely going to be up your alley. So scoop it up today. It's available right now from Anchor Bay Entertainment. And next up, guys, available March 25th from Image Entertainment, is Odd Thomas. In Odd Thomas, it stars Anton Yelchin as a small-time fry cook by the name of Odd Thomas. The secret about him is that he can see dead people. And when a bunch of ghostly predators, stake claim on his small town, things go pretty bad pretty quickly. And it's up to Odd Thomas to kind of team up with the local sheriff, played by Willem Dafoe, and his girlfriend to kind of put an end to these ghostly entities before things, kind of get out of, massive control. Odd Thomas is actually based on a series of books by Dean Koontz, and this is actually directed by Stephen Sommers, who's been responsible for a lot of Hollywood blockbusters like The Mummy Returns, and the first G.I. Joe film. Unfortunately, Odd Thomas just had a very odd and, tough break release strategy, and I remember when this film originally had gotten announced, and I was pretty excited to check it out, and it kind of, it drifted away, kind of fell off the radar, and before I knew it, it was getting dumped on Blu-ray. It's very odd considering, the talent, in front of the camera and behind the camera for a project like this just kind of get dumped by the wayside and pop up on Blu-ray, but I guess that's how Hollywood works sometimes. But Odd Thomas starts off pretty promising. I really like Anton Yelchin's chemistry with his girlfriend Stormy, who's played by Addison Timlin. really like them. She's a really gorgeous girl, and I think that, you know, some of them have some, you know, some great on-screen chemistry. The screenplay is, you know, really witty, and it's got, you know, a very snappy, fast-paced dialogue, and, you know, it's really cool. I really like that about that. I really got into, you know, the dialect and, you know, just kind of like the pace of how everybody was talking. Really dug that. Willem Dafoe has a small role as, you know, the local sheriff who, you know, is kind of in cahoots with Odd Thomas. Odd Thomas is kind of like an informant of his that, you know, tells him about entities that are, you know, kind of swarming on the town, you know, when things go bad. You know, they kind of are, you know, a bit of a team, if you will, and they work together really well, and Willem Dafoe's presence in any film is always going to heighten it just a little bit more than, you know, what it originally would have been. So it's always a joy to see Willem Dafoe on screen, but, you know, these ghostly entities make their way to his town, and they're known as Bodaks. And you know, the CG technology utilized to bring them to life is actually pretty cool. I like the look and design of these Bodaks. I think that, you know, they're you know, really grotesque looking, but they're kind of like you know, they're see-through. So, you know, everything that, you know, whatever scene or setting that they're in is kind of seen right through them. But, you know, there's a lot of detail and a lot of intricacies going on, you know, within each of their designs. And there are just hundreds of thousands of them, you know, popping up in, you know, scenes at a time. You know, the film starts off pretty promising. You know, boy can see dead people. He has this really cool supernatural ability. These, you know, not so great ghosts stake claim onto his town. So you kind of seem like, okay, he's kind of like, you know, like a Haley Joel Osment, kind of like a superhero, though. You know, he's going to put an end, team up with the local sheriff, you know, and whatnot. And, you know, kind of midway, it kind of takes a different turn, and I don't want to say boring to kind of, you know, simply generalize it, but it did. It kind of lost its steam kind of midway through, and, you know, as it kind of hit the midway point, it kind of, you know, was making its way to the finish line. I kind of saw why you know, a film like this probably would have had a hard time getting released, because it is a tough nut to crack as far as, you know, a marketing campaign. You know, it's not really an easy film to sell. You know, I mean, you know, the description on the back makes it seem, you know, very, you know, straightforward, but, you know, somewhere around the midway point, it kind of loses its way and never really, you know, packs the punch that I'm hoping it was going to be. And, you know, without giving any spoilers away, the ending is a pretty unexpected and a bit of a downer, too. I was, like, really upset with the ending of, you know, what happened, but, you know, this is based, like I said, on a series of books by Dean Koontz, so, you know, there's no telling, maybe they have hopes that this is going to kind of, you know, jumpstart a franchise, but the way that, you know, the first one was kind of presented and released, I don't really know if we're going to ever see, you know, future installments of that, so the film kind of ends on an open-ended note that we don't really, you know, it's really unsure and unclear if we're really going to kind of see Odd Thomas's character, you know, develop and, you know, see more adventures, you know, in the future. But like I said, Odd Thomas, it's a decent film. I had an okay time with it. I liked the on-screen chemistry of it. It's definitely a a lower budgeted film, you know, compared to other Stephen Sommers films. But you know, there's some great, you know, CG effects in it that I really liked. You know, you got some good cast members in it. I really liked the chemistry found within the whole core cast. But overall, you know, it just kind of set kind of like on a mediocre level for me. I was expecting a little bit more and didn't get all that I signed up for. But, you know, that said, I think that some people are going to dig this, especially if you, you know, I'm sure if you read the books by Dean Koontz. I haven't. So, you know, maybe, you know, there's more to appreciate if you've read the books and it's a faithful adaptation. I don't really know. But that being said, this is a Blu-ray DVD combo pack. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. You get a cool lenticular slipcover on that. As you can see, you know, some ghostly hands coming up to, you know, go after Odd Thomas. Pretty cool. And then when you flip that over, you get a cool, you know, image of that Bodak that I was talking about with, you know, that kind of see-through appearance. Some screen grabs on here. And then when you take this one off, you get that image yet again. Cracking this one open, you get the Blu-ray with, you know, similar cover art, you know, that they, you know, disc art rather, that they use on the cover. You got a, you know, a paper sleeve advertising the Dean Koontz novels if you're interested in picking that up, and then you get the DVD on the other side. But like I said, you know, for all the creative talent involved, it started off promising, kind of left me feeling like it was just a mediocre effort at best. But you know, if you're into you know, ghostly supernatural films and you're a fan of Stephen Sommers, then definitely check out Odd Thomas. You know, it might be up your alley. Who knows? It's going to be available March 25th from Image Entertainment. And next up, guys, available right now, also from Image Entertainment, is Tom Holland's Twisted Tales. Now, Tom Holland is a name that's been synonymous in the horror community for years. He was, responsible for the original Child's Play, Fright Night, and the underappreciated Stephen King adaptation Thinner. But in recent years, you haven't really seen him, behind the camera, directing anything for that matter. It's been a shame because I really like Tom Holland's output. I think he's a great asset to the horror community and has offered so many classics, in his long career. So, when this new anthology, was released, I had to check it out because Tom Holland's name alone, carries a lot of weight for me. And this is actually scattered with quite a few genre names in it, so it seemed like a pretty good, payoff to check out. In this, Tom Holland wrote and directed all 9 nerve-ending shorts that you're going to find in this one, but it is with such great disappointment that I have to say that it's horrible. It's a horrible, horrible anthology. I mean, it is plagued with so many issues. Its shoestring budget just completely takes you out of the film. It's shot on, I don't even know what kind of digital cameras, but it's just got such a, it just has such a cheap quality to it that it makes it look like, somebody's filming with, like their, handheld digital camera or something. It's just got really, really bad, low-budget quality. And while, from what I understand, I think that these shorts, were released kind of, sporadically on the FearNet channel and would air here and there, one here at, various time slots. But Image Entertainment has kind of, coupled all 9 together and presented them, as one kind of like coherent anthology film, which, in my opinion, it's great to kind of have them all, together because it's all Tom Holland's work, but to have them all together, it runs a runtime of 2.5 hours, which is just ungodly long for any horror film. Like, I mean, some epics aren't even 2.5 hours. So watching all 9 of these shorts, unravel before your eyes, and one after the other, it just gets worse and worse and worse, unfortunately. With the exception of the first film, Fred and His GPS, which I actually found pretty enjoyable. A.J. Bowen's, performance in that, it's pretty cool. It's a guy that just recently murdered his wife, and he's trying to, flee the country or flee from the scene, and, he kind of ends up talking to his GPS and starts hearing his voice, his dead wife's voice in it, and kind of goes mad and stuff. So it's a very short, digestible little short that's, really highlighted, because of A.J. Bowen's performance in it. But from then on, every short just gets worse and worse and worse, which is a shame because, you get a bunch of familiar faces in this, like William Forsythe from The Devil's Rejects. You get Danielle Harris from Halloween 4 and 5, which is awesome. You get Ray Weiss from X-Men First Class. Sarah Butler from I Spit on Your Grave is in this. So, it's definitely littered with, a bunch of genre names that horror fans are gonna, recognize for sure, but just the quality of the shorts themselves, it's just bad acting, which I don't really blame, the more seasoned vets, but, a lot of, the new talent that is in this are just really bad. They're very unprofessional, and, they just have really bad acting chops. It really takes you out. It's really, pain-inducing to watch it. The stories are not that great, and the screenplays, the scripts for each of them are really bad and dodgy. I mean, this is just not a good horror anthology series, which is, it's so disappointing to hear that, because Tom Holland is so capable of better, but, it's, with the limited budget, I'm sure, and everything, it probably, I just feel like maybe he bit off more than he could chew. There's one short that, goes, it's towards the end. It's one of the final ones that you'll see, called The Pizza Guy, and it's broken into 7 long, just nauseating chapters. It's the worst one of the batch. I cannot speak badly enough about that short. It was so bad. I mean, just everything about it horrendous. The acting, the story, the payoff, everything. Just a bad, bad short. But it's disappointing because, Tom Holland's name alone and some of the more seasoned vets in this definitely are capable of better and, deserve to make better. But, I can't really recommend this. I really had a bad time with Twisted Tales, but all that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the packaging. This is available only on DVD, and, you know, got a pretty cool cover art, I will give it that. I mean, it definitely will draw you in, Tom Holland's name and something like that. And then on the back, you have Tom Holland in there. You know, he kind of serves as a bit of a host. He introduces each of the shorts and kind of tells you about them before they happen, so pretty cool. You get some cool shots of, you know, William Forsythe and Danielle Harris there, and then when you take this one off, comes in a clear DVD case, utilizing that same poster, and then you get some cool disc art, again, using that cover, and you get some cool advertisements for other, you know, DVDs available, like Hellraiser and Children of the Corn. But, like I said, this was a really, really bad, you know, crazy overlong horror anthology that's plagued by, you know, budget issues, bad writing, bad performances, the whole nine. Really can't recommend Tom Holland's Twisted Tales as much as I would have wanted to, because I love Tom Holland and so many of the people that appear in this one, but it is a really bad, painful horror anthology to watch. But if you're still interested and curious enough to check it out, it's available right now from Image Entertainment. Alrighty guys, and the next title that we're going to be taking a look at is available right now from Millennium Entertainment, and it's Buck Wild. This tongue-in-cheek horror comedy centers on four friends who go out on an idyllic hunting trip. Craig is a guy who's on the verge of getting married, and he brings his best man, his other buddy, and his very unstable New Yorker cousin to kind of spend some male bonding and just kind of hanging out, but things go pretty wrong once Craig learns that his best man-to-be and his fiancé have been screwing around behind his back. All the while, you know, a fast-approaching chupacabra virus has infected the locals, and they're all being turned into the undead. So the boys have to put their differences aside to kind of fight these zombies in order to get out of this setting alive. You know, what starts off as kind of, you know, a cool premise goes wrong pretty quickly. You know, the core cast in this one, they kind of have, you know, the buddy comedy thing going for themselves. It's a bit of a road movie, and, you know, a few of them have, like, personality traits that's, you know, similar to the guys in the Hangover movies, and, you know, just kind of like on, you know, the surface value of it's four guys, you know, going out on a trip, kind of like a, you know, like a pre-wedding trip, kind of bears a few more similarities to the Hangover films with lesser results, though. It's just not a funny movie. That's really the problem is, you know, when you're making a, you know, a zombie comedy or, you know, a horror comedy movie, you know, those two things need to be very well in check with one another. I mean, it's got to be funny, but at the same time it has to be able to, you know, give you a good scare now and again, and it really doesn't do either. But the comedy is really the thing that suffers the most because, you know, it's so in your face with them trying to make attempts to make you laugh, but they're just not very funny. I mean, you know, the character traits and the jokes that are kind of thrown at the screen fall flat. You know, these guys don't really have great chemistry with each other. It just, you know, you're kind of waiting for the laughs to come, but then when you kind of reach the 30 to 40 minute mark, and you're not really finding yourself laughing, you kind of know how the rest of the film is going to play out. You know, the makeup designs of the zombies are okay. This obviously, you know, wasn't a big budgeted picture, but, you know, they look okay for what it is. You're not really, you know, there's no genuine scares or, you know, jump scares that are kind of going to happen in this film, which is a shame because you kind of always hope and anticipate for something like that to happen. But again, nothing really, you know, creeps you out in the horror department. Another thing that really kind of, you know, really made, you know, grinded my teeth a little bit is, you know, this really, like, you know, nauseating exchange of dialogue between the characters where it just kind of felt like the makers of the film wanted to show, hey, we're film geeks too, and they kind of, you know, make references to the Godfather trilogy and comparisons to that, and having, you know, Craig and his cousin get into a fight about, you know, the Godfather trilogy and stuff like that, and it just seems so painful and, you know, very, you know, premeditated that they would do that to, you know, just kind of show off like, hey, we're, you know, we know that these are movie geeks watching a film like this, so let's just kind of get in and kind of show them our movie geek colors, but, it's bad, you know, it's very nauseating to see stuff like that, you know, because it just feels so forced in a film like this one. But I can't really recommend Buck Wild. I really wanted to like it because it had a promising enough premise, but falls flat pretty quickly, you know, with, you know, zero laughs and no real scares to be had in this one. But let's go ahead and take a look at the packaging, shall we? On there, you know, really goes for the whole, you know, hunting aspect on it. I do like that cover art. I think it sells the picture really well. I just wish, you know, the film itself could have been as good as the poster. That's all. And then when you get to the back, you know, you kind of get, again, some of those hunting kind of you know, moments that you see within the film. Some screen grabs here, some shootout moments that come in the film, and a description. Nothing in the way of special features except some deleted scenes, but, you know, nothing to really write home about. And then when you crack this open, you get some really cool disc art that's similar to that poster art that you saw before. But like I said, not really a great zombie comedy. I really didn't find much enjoyment to be had here, but anybody that's a big zombie fan will definitely want to check this one out for themselves. So by all means, check it out. It just wasn't for me. But that said, it's available right now from Millennium Entertainment. Alrighty guys, and one of the final films that we're going to be talking about this week is available right now from Kino Lorber as a part of their Redemption line, and it's 1972's The Flesh and Blood Show. Now admittedly, I've always been a fan of horror films that take place in, you know, opera houses or, you know, movie theaters, you know, dating back all the way to the Phantom of the Opera, all the way to something like Demons. That's just a setting that I've always loved in horror films. I think it adds a great atmosphere and a great tone. So, you know, having owned The Flesh and Blood Show on DVD before, I never got around to watching it. But luckily, Kino Lorber, under the Redemption line, is putting it out on Blu-ray for the first time ever. But for those of you that have never seen The Flesh and Blood Show, this deals with a seaside theater that's been abandoned for years following, you know, the tragedy that happened there years prior during a production of Othello. So when a young, you know, cast of performers kind of all congregate at this theater for a new production that they're rehearsing for, you know, tragedy strikes them yet again when they all fall victim to a mysterious killer, you know, in the shadows. You know, again, you know, going into this, I really had a feeling that I was going to dig this a lot with the setting and everything going into it. It's been a while since I've watched some Euro horror, so I was really, you know, excited to cut into this one. And, you know, this starts off promising enough. It kind of, you know, it starts off with you know, a great tone going for it, but it does kind of fall flat for me. I don't know exactly what I was expecting, but you know, overall, I didn't hate the film. I certainly didn't hate it. I just didn't think I got all that I was hoping I was going to get, if that makes any sense. You know, there's some cool things in it. You know, the core cast of you know, performers that are congregating at this theater now are cool. You know, I think that they had, you know, some great presence to them. I think they got along well with one another. It came through in the chemistry on screen, which was good. But it's something like that that, you know, also plagues a bit of the other film that I'm going to talk about next, where you're kind of like, is this a horror film? You know, I'm not really seeing, you know, a lot of you know, atmosphere going on. I'm not feeling, you know, any genuine suspense going on. It just feels like there's a lot of, you know, interaction between characters, and then, you know, intermittently kills are happening mysteriously, you know, on screen, of course, but they just kind of come and go, and it doesn't really, you know, feel very much like a horror film at all times, which I think kind of, you know, maybe made me walk away with, you know, a little bit of a mediocre feeling towards this film. But, you know, when the kills do happen, they are effective. I think they work really well. It just wasn't all that it was cracked up to be, which is a shame because I really like European horror films, but this one in particular didn't really do it for me. You know, especially with the theater setting, that this was going to hold a lot more charm for me than it did. But alas, it just wasn't meant to be. But you know, Pete Walker is, you know, a synonymous name amongst you know, Euro you know, cult and Euro horror titles, so his name definitely bears a lot of weight. But I just don't think that I've really taken to you know, his films like other fans have. So you know, The Flesh and Blood Show wasn't really, you know, my cup of tea, although I'm sure it will be for many, many others. But Redemption's, you know, treatment of the film, they do indicate that this is newly remastered in HD from an original 35mm negative, but unfortunately, it doesn't look all that hot for all that. But I'm really, I'm guessing I'm just going to have to blame that on the materials themselves. Maybe they weren't in the best of shape, but this film, is just constantly plagued by, flakes and speckles. Color is kind of drained. Black levels really could have benefited from being a lot better than what you're seeing here, especially, for a film that's taking place in an abandoned theater where there's not a lot of electricity in it, and they're kind of, going on, candlelight a lot of it. So the black levels are a little rough in this one, could have benefited, from being improved, but, it's just not a really particularly great looking film, for them remastering it from original camera negatives and stuff. But again, I guess that's, really attributed to the condition that the original materials were in. It's not a horrendous presentation. I guess I was just expecting a little bit more the way that it was being talked up on the back. But all that said, Redemption does pack some nice features on here. You get a Flesh, Blood, and Censorship interview with director Pete Walker, which is a nice interview. It's kind of like, it's about 10-13 minutes, and he talks about, his involvement in the film and how it all kind of, came together. So it's a nice little, behind-the-scenes look. You also get, a 3D sequence, which is, near the final 10-15 minutes of the film, and it's available in stereoscopic format, which is, if you have a 3D TV, but it's also available in the traditional old-school 3D format if you have, like, the red and blue glasses, which unfortunately do not come included. So if you have, like, the original Nightmare on Elm Street DVD box set, or, the Friday the 13th 3, Blu-ray, pop those glasses out, and, it's cool that they included both 3D options. So very cool stuff. In addition, you get the original theatrical trailer to boot, so a nice spread of features to be had in this one. But let's go ahead and check out that cover art. Really effective stuff. I really do like the art on that, although I wasn't a huge fan of the film itself. And then on the back, you get some cool screen grabs of there from some of the characters, some moments of terror there. And then when you crack this one open, you get some pretty plain disc art. But like I said, this was my first foray into the Flesh and Blood show, a bit of an homage to the Grand Guignol. Not a huge fan of it. I'm hoping that, other Pete Walker efforts in the future really hold a lot more water for me, but the Flesh and Blood show didn't do much for me. But if you're a fan of Euro horror in general, definitely check this one out. It's available right now from Redemption. Okay, guys, and the final title that we're going to be talking about in this all-horror edition of the Blu-ray DVD Weekly Wrap-Up is available right now from Kino Lorber, also a part of the Redemption line, and it's 1974's Frightmare. Again, directed by Pete Walker, this film was originally hailed as being horrendous and despicable, and what else did they say? They said it was a moral obscenity. But in this film, Sheila Keith actually stars as a recently released mental patient who's been deemed cured and is back out in society with her husband, and they're kind of living a quiet, secluded life, and in her spare time she tells fortunes for a living. But unfortunately, things might not be as stable as the good doctors once predicted, and before long she may or she may not have been going back to her devious ways once again. This film was an interesting one, another one that I had on DVD for years, but never got around to watching it. But Kino Lorber, part of the Redemption line, has put this out on the Blu-ray format for me to finally check out, and I was pleasantly surprised with this one. I really dug this one a lot, and while it kind of plays in a similar fashion that the Flesh and Blood show did, and while I was kind of complaining about the way the Flesh and Blood show, was kind of presented, that kind of, suffered in the viewing experience for me, kind of enhances and helps it in Frightmare. For me to explain, in this film, like I said, Sheila Keith is an elderly woman that gets released from a mental asylum for cannibalism. Very odd, because she's an elderly woman. It kind of just adds to the creepiness of, like, an elderly woman, chopping people up and eating them. So, once she's released, like I said, she's living this secluded life, and, the bulk of the film isn't even really focused on her and her husband. It's really more focused on her daughter, who's grown up, living in an apartment. She has a life of her own and whatnot, but she still keeps, obviously in good contact with her father and mother, now that the mother is released and stuff. And, it kind of plays like a very intriguing drama, with the daughter. She ends up, kind of having, a bit of a love relationship with this man who's a psychiatrist, and, with talking to her and their relationship developing, you're kind of learning more about her and her upbringing with her parents and, the acts that, the mother committed and what have you. So it's very intriguing because you're learning more and more. You're really, kind of pushing this, kind of getting to the surface of things, and you're learning a lot, which kind of keeps the film very intriguing and really keeps you guessing all the way down to a twist ending at the end. On top of everything that's going on, the thing that really makes this film, very interesting is the daughter is also, really in charge of her younger sister, who she's, had to have taken care of, thanks to her, her parents being institutionalized for so many years. So her daughter, her younger sister is, a bit of a criminal. She's a very, rebellious, wild child, and she gets into a lot of drama on her own with the people that she rolls around with. So while it doesn't sound like it really is coming off like a horror film, in many of the ways that I was complaining about the Flesh and Blood show, it's intriguing. I think it's done really well and really, makes you care and makes you want to understand what's really going on here. Like what is really going on with this sister? Like, why is she so crazy? Why does she not know that her parents are alive, for instance? The younger sister doesn't know that, and the older daughter, doesn't want to reveal that to her. It's very intriguing. So the whole runtime, you're kind of sitting and waiting for, answers to be revealed with you. And I like that about it. I really dug, Frightmare a lot more than I thought going into it. And, again, getting in to that, twist ending is really cool, and it's a really nice payoff, too. I really liked, the route that they went with it, so it's a good time. I really enjoyed this one, for being, so removed from Euro horror for quite a while. Frightmare was a really nice surprise and a nice return to a genre that I've been, away from for quite some time, but, similar to the Flesh and Blood show, this was, kind of played with the same, video, issues that film was. That this is just caked with so many flecks, flakes and speckles and dirt and debris. Even worse than the Flesh and Blood show. So it's not a really rewarding viewing experience. It's not the worst I've ever seen by any means. I mean, it's okay, but it just could have been a lot better treatment could have been put into this one. It's just not great. It's colors are very drained. The same black level issues that were present in the Flesh and Blood show are the same here. Black levels could have been improved. It just looks like a very muddy print that was kind of, transferred onto Blu-ray, but it's okay. Grain, there's an okay grain structure within it, so you do get some decent detail, in facial features and, wardrobe and what have you, but overall, I think that, the viewing experience could have been cleaned up a lot better than what it was, but it is what it is. On this one, Redemption does pack some nice special features on here. You get a For the Sake of Cannibalism interview with Pete Walker, which is really good stuff, too. He goes about, the making of Frightmare and everything that went into it. As well, you get an audio commentary by director Pete Walker along with the DP, Peter Jessup. You get a Sheila Keith, A Nice Old Lady, which is a profile of the late actress with interviews from some of her former collaborators. And wrapping this one up, you get an original theatrical trailer with this one. So overall, I actually had a lot better time with Frightmare than I originally thought I was going to have. While it may not always feel like it plays like a horror film, it's very intriguing and will kind of keep you on the edge of your seat to kind of understand what's going on with all of these kooky characters in it. So it's a good one. I really recommend checking this one out. But let's go ahead and take a look at the packaging. Again, utilizing that poster art that's become very iconic with this film of Sheila Keith, with a drill, very cool stuff. And then on the back, you get some screen grabs. You get Sheila Keith, kind of doing a tarot reading on there. And then when you crack this one open, again, you're kind of left with some really plain and dull disc art. But like I said, I had a really good time with this one. Much better time than the Flesh and Blood show. Good stuff. Really, cool addition into Euro horror history, and quickly has become one of my favorite Pete Walker films. So definitely check it out right now. It's available courtesy of Kino Lorber through the Redemption line. And that about does it for this week's all-horror edition of the Blu-ray DVD Weekly Wrap-Up. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, but be sure to stay tuned for upcoming reviews for Disney's Blu-ray releases for The Jungle Book 2, as well as Winnie the Pooh Springtime with Roo. We also have an advanced peek at Anchor Bay Entertainment's release for August Osage County starring Meryl Streep and Julia Roberts. We also have an anticipated upcoming Season 1 Blu-ray release from Little House on the Prairie from Lionsgate. We also have the exciting release from Grindhouse releasing of The Swimmer, one of my favorite films from the 1960s, and we also have a sneak peek at Scream Factory's latest release of Beneath on Blu-ray. All this and much more, so be sure to stay tuned, stay subscribed, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks again for tuning in, guys.